Hey, everybody, it is Trags Mike Petraglia alongside Richard Skinner. We know him better as Skinny from Local 12 and Local12.com. And this is the Jungle Roar Bengals postgame podcast following a dominating 45-21 win over the Miami Dolphins down in South Florida at Hard Rock Stadium. Skinny, everything that could go right, especially in the third quarter, went right, and more power, more credit to the Bengals for taking advantage of it. They scored 21 points, all scored by Chase Brown, by the way, in that third quarter to make what was a 17-14 nail-biter at halftime, if you want to call it that, a rout, 45-14 at one point. It was good for the Bengals to enjoy one of these.
Yeah, it is, in all fairness. The defense forced those turnovers. I think the only one that was kind of gifted to them was the pass to Waddle that Jalen Davis intercepted. That was probably not a very good decision by Quinn Ewers. But the fumble, Miles Murphy hustled down the field to go recover that fumble. The interception of Barrett Carter was a nice job by Josh Newton to get a hand in and disrupt it and the ball go up in the air, and Barrett Carter to come back and pick it out of the air. Joe Burrow assuaged, I think, some fears that we had coming out of the Baltimore game of where is this guy exactly. He was as sharp as he could be today, really in complete command of the offense. But I hope nobody starts to confuse these final three games with something's fixed, something's better, something's remedied.
I was going to get to that.
Yeah,
I was going to get to that.
I hope that's not. Listen, they should enjoy this win. Fans should enjoy this win. Everybody associated with it should enjoy this win because it's really one of the few times this year they've played complementary football where the defense got stops, got turnovers. The offense took advantage of it. They ran the ball better in the second half and got better as the game went on. As I mentioned, Burrow was in complete command. I mean, special teams, Ryan Rico was outstanding today. So you got a little bit of everything from everybody, all parts of the unit today. So, yeah, should enjoy it, but don't get the false sense of security over these final three games that this is somehow, we're coming. We're getting, no, you're not. You're just not.
No. And Zach Taylor told us this week in our meetings with him that he just wanted for his players, for his coaching staff, everybody associated with the team to be able to get on the plane after the game today, fly back to Cincinnati from a nice weekend in South Florida where the temperatures were in the mid 70s to lower 80s, and just enjoy the plane ride back after a solid win. That's what the Bengals delivered today. Something else Zach Taylor said that I thought was very prophetic. Coming off the field, he does one of those halftime interviews with Aditi Kinkhabwala of CBS, and he says, at that point the game is 17-14, and he says to Aditi, we just now need some turnovers in that third quarter to really turn the he did. You're right. I correct myself.
Yeah,
he said just one turnover.
Because that stuck with me too.
Yeah, and sure enough, the Dolphins were moving down the field, and it's important to note this because it was 17-14, and the Dolphins took the opening drive of the second half and were moving down the field. It was, I believe, a 30-yard play to Devon Achane. It was a short pass play, and on that pass play, one of their rookies got called for pass interference. It completely changed everything because on the very next play, the Bengals did generate that turnover when it was, I believe, Jordan Battle over the middle, forcing the fumble. And as you said, Miles Murphy hustling downfield to jump on it. The game swung at that point and never swung back the other way. And again, credit the Bengals for forcing that turnover. But at that point, the Bengals defense did not look great.
No, the pass interference penalty, by the way, was by the wide receiver Weiss, who was on the practice squad and really had taken a lot of reps with Quinn Ewers. One of the reasons they brought him up is because they developed kind of a relationship on the field, and they wanted him to
Theo Weiss, yes.
Yeah, Theo Weiss. And it was I'm not so sure it was a great call, but he did clip Barrett Carter on a crossing route as Carter was trying to get out in the flat to where Achane caught that screen pass, and I guess, that is a pass interference penalty, and you're right, it was huge because it looked like really they were just trying to get some yards to punt on that third down play and trying to have a yards after catch play by Dulcich, the tight end, and Jordan Battle makes a huge play, and then it was just an avalanche from there of both the Bengals getting that turnover, going down and scoring, getting another turnover, going down and scoring, getting the stop on fourth down, going down and scoring, getting another interception by Jalen Davis. It was just an avalanche from that point on.
And we should mention they also got the fourth down stop where Ewers slipped. You could tell on the quarterback sneak on 4th and 1, his left foot slipped on the paint at midfield, and the Bengals got another break on all of those swings of momentum. As I wrote on CLNSCincy.com, the Bengals capitalized with a touchdown. The Bengals today, Skinny, were 6 for 6 in the red zone. You go and how much is that in contrast to last week when the Bengals were inside the 35-yard line, I believe it was, of Baltimore 5 times, and obviously they scored no points on the afternoon.
Yeah, and that had to be a sticking point coming out of last week because, even if you kicked 5 field goals in those circumstances, you made it a football game. Instead, you came away with nothing in those 5 trips, and today cashed in big time, and a couple of times really easy. I mean, the touchdown pass to Mike Gesicki was a good catch, but it was a kind of an easy play. The one where Chase Brown is wide open in the end zone on the pass. The run up the middle, Chase Brown, I'm not sure he got touched. I mean,
I don't think he did.
All easy plays, believe it or not. It's not supposed to be that easy down in the red zone.
There was a great duo block, and all of these plays are coming to my mind because, when a team plays the way the Bengals did, especially in that second half, so many things come to front of mind. The duo block by Dylan Fairchild and Ted Karras on the Samaje Perine touchdown run in the first half. That was a thing of beauty. It's that kind of execution we haven't been seeing a lot of this year. Today, it just seemed like when the Bengals offense was given the opportunity by the defense, we've talked about complementary football all season. The Bengals executed that to perfection this afternoon.
Yeah, and you wonder where has that been? Is it just a matter of getting all your weapons back on the offensive side of the ball and kind of maybe playing in a relaxed state? Maybe being out of the playoff race just allowed you to go out there
playing in 78-degree weather.
And 78-degree weather doesn't hurt either. All those things come to mind. I think a big takeaway from today was, and I think we all have that fear of Joe Burrow being broken, right? Of when's it going to start building back up? Well, I think you saw it today. I mean, he looked at times in the first half like he was kind of going through the motions.
Yeah, we were talking back and forth, Skinny, about this in text, and going through the motions is too harsh, too severe for what it looked like. But there were times where I thought Burrow just didn't – he was either throwing the ball too high. Now, he made a great pass on the touchdown to T. Higgins in the first quarter. But there were times where he looked off his game a little bit. He looked out of rhythm, at least in the first 3 or 4 possessions anyway.
Yeah, and then you look up, and the guy has a great day, 25 of 32 for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yes.
He had his second worst single-game passer rating of his NFL career last week at 58.2, and turns in an almost perfect one today of 146.4. You tell me which one's the outlier. And I think that's how you now have to look at this, is that was just – it just came at the end of a wonky, weird, wacky, crazy, we still don't even know how to explain it week. And after that's kind of been washed away – Joe Burrow became Joe Burrow again this afternoon with a 146 and some change passer rating.
T. Higgins was back in the lineup. And there were some people wondering if T. Higgins, given 2 concussions in 3 weeks span, whether he should even be on the field. Well, we learned during the CBS broadcast today that T. Higgins went to see a concussion specialist during the week. He was cleared medically. He was assured, the team was assured, that he is in a good place. He would not do any damage by playing again. So, first of all, I want to get your thoughts when you saw that T. Higgins was active 90 minutes before the game, ready to play, clearing that final concussion protocol hurdle over the weekend. He played. He had a touchdown grab. He had 3 catches on 3 targets for, I believe it was, let's check the numbers here. I've got it, 53 yards. Yeah. And so he had a very productive day. Your thoughts on seeing him out there on the field today?
Well, I'm glad that news was passed down about him going to see the specialist in Pittsburgh. I think that would give everybody a peace of mind of let's get a final definitive result of this, of where things stand. And, I think that was good on the Bengals' part. It was good on T's part to go doing that. He might have asked for all I know, but whoever decided to have him do that, good on all involved. And it probably does give you a little peace of mind for all parties. Those things can sometimes be just hard to know when a player is ready. I know they have independent doctors try to do it, and I think that's all well and good, but Sometimes guys can, fudge their way through it a little bit and fake their way through it a little bit. And I'm just glad that it seems like they dotted every I and crossed every T, no pun intended, to get him to in the right place to play in this game. And he makes a difference. I mean, went up and caught the jump ball for a first down early in the game, got him out of that hole in that 91-yard drive, ran a great route to catch the touchdown, and that was not an easy catch either. It was a great ball. The only guy who was going to catch it was T. Higgins, but he made a great play on that one. Looked like they kind of had him on a pitch count, which was probably smart to do as well.
Sure.
And it just shows. I will say this, and I think Paul Dehner Jr. asked it in the post-game press conference of Zach Taylor, like, is this what you envision this offense to look like when you got all your guys? And sure, this is what you envision Mike Gesicki making big plays. You envision Chase Brown making big plays. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are going to make big plays. If your offensive line holds up, Joe Burrow is going to make big plays. And I do think there's something to that. Again, this is not a good Miami team, obviously. They're missing their best defensive player, arguably, in Minkah Fitzpatrick. And that probably made some difference, too, in what you were able to do in the past game. But I do think this is what it can look like, as long as the defense can do its part.
Well, do you envision an average starting field position of the 50-yard line too? I mean,
that helps.
Come on, I mean
that cuts the game in half. That's arena football right there, Mike. That's a good point.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you create 3 turnovers and you score whatever it was, 14 points in 71 seconds, I believe it was, of the third quarter. Again, full marks to the Bengals for coming out, creating the turnovers, then taking advantage when you do create those turnovers. But again, the takeaways for me in this game are that Joe Burrow was very, very efficient once he was given the momentum, once the Bengals started playing complementary football. We need to talk about how important Chase Brown was in the game today. And he went over 100 yards. He had an off game against the Baltimore Ravens, obviously, and he did not look great against the Buffalo Bills a week before in the snow. After 2 off games, Chase Brown was back in full 5-star fashion today. Chase Brown was 12 carries, 66 yards, a touchdown run, and then he had 2 receiving touchdowns. He had 4 catches, 4 targets, 43 yards. He did it all for the Bengals, especially in the red zone, and he made people miss.
Yeah, I expected a huge season from him. In fact, I remember on the podcast that we all did right before the season, I said I thought he would threaten James Brooks's single-season career yards from scrimmage record. He's not going to, but he had that stretch where he was, 9 straight games of over 100 yards from scrimmage. Then he had, to your point, a couple of off games, and came back to do the things I think he's more than capable of today. I mean, he can pop big runs. He can run for tough yards. He's great in space. I mean, that move he made on the 9-yard touchdown catch where he catches it at the 5, spins quickly away from a defender and into the end zone was a piece of artwork. I mean, it was just a great single move. I think this guy is blossoming, man. He is a weapon. I don't know how they didn't get him on track early in the year. Probably that was all offensive line related when you look back in retrospect. But once you give him just a little bit of room, he is going to do some special things for this team. And I think that moving forward, maybe into next year, will take some pressure. I know this is always going to be a pass-first offense. It really and truly is. Understood. But maybe it can be let's get a few more checkdowns to Chase Brown. Let's find Chase Brown a little bit more in the pass game, and instead of holding the ball for a long time in the pocket. Maybe that helps Joe Burrow not take as many hits. And if he can run the ball this effectively, kind of a nice 1-2 punch with him and Samaje Perine, I do think that's another thing you can kind of hang your hat on as you move into 2026 is that you still have Chase Brown emerging as a player, and that's a good thing because I think he's emerging in the right way.
He's an ideal West Coast offense running back. And I don't understand why maybe Zach Taylor and Dan Picture, I'm sure they do employ elements of the West Coast offense, but if you transition more to a West Coast offense where you use the tight ends and use the running backs in space more, I think this could be a much more dynamic offense. And correct me if I'm wrong, Skinny, but I thought today when Chase Brown got more touches in the passing game, it seemed to engage his running attack.
Yeah, I think they probably play off of each other, right? Like, you got to be responsible for him in the pass game, and suddenly, they're popping runs with him as well. And I think some of that, again, goes back to the offensive line. It's had its poor moments this season, but I think as the season's gone along as a whole, the unit's played better. And it just shows you that if you just give him a little crease or get him out in space, he's going to do some special things with the football.
All right, defensively, and we talked about the 3 turnovers, obviously, but I want to talk about the play of the front line, the defensive line today. I thought in space between the tackles, the defensive line looked outstanding. Yes, they got burned, and the Bengals defense got burned out on the perimeter when A-Chain got outside. He broke off the 148-yard touchdown run where Geno Stone whiffed, but that was a perfectly, yeah, it was bad. No, there's no question about that, Skinny, but that was a perfectly blocked play. If you go back and watch the overhead shot from CBS, because we don't have the all 22s yet, of course, but if you go back and watch the replay of that play, it was perfectly blocked, and it left Geno Stone on an island. You make one guy miss, and you're off to the races.
Well, that's it. It's perfectly blocked for a 15-yard gain, and Geno Stone has to make that tackle. If this was a one-off where, okay, just tip your cap to A-Chain, and he is a good player. In space, he's a dynamic player. He's a game breaker. But if that's not just Geno Stone's MO, I could probably give it a pass and tip my cap more to A-Chain. But my God, that was not even just a whiff. That was an embarrassing whiff. Like, he didn't even want to make contact with the guy.
The effort, that's where you wonder, and we'll talk to Al Golden this week, you know, when we meet with the coordinators, Al Golden and Dan Pitcher. When you go back and watch that play, there are plays where the running back makes the guy miss and he just has no chance. He actually had contact with A-Chain, but it looked like it was kind of half-hearted,
yes,
and he didn't wrap. That's where you ask Al Golden, what's the technique that could be better there, especially from a veteran like Geno Stone, who knows he's one-on-one there. He knows before he goes in for the kill that he's got to wrap up there and doesn't.
No, but that's been him for the most part all season, all the last 2 seasons. And you just can't have that. That's where I would go back to saying, listen, we've got one safety that just simply can't play in the National Football League at a high level. That's Geno Stone. Jordan Battle does at times, and he had a couple of his moments today. He also had a missed tackle or 2 today. You just can't allow that. That just can't happen. I'm sorry. That has to be a tackle in the National Football League. That may not be a tackle when Indian Hill's playing Deer Park, and Deer Park comes up and tries to tackle Devlin Daniel. I'll give you that part of
it.
But in the NFL, I know. In the NFL, Mike, that has to be a tackle.
Oh, no, there's no question about that. It has to be a tackle. It didn't make it. And Skinny, too often today, and they even said this on the broadcast, one of the things that Al Golden's got to work on with this defense is getting his players in positions to finish plays. And they, even in that first half, I didn't think the Bengals were doing a particularly good job of finishing plays at all.
There was one, I think it was a pass completion that Barrett Carter looked like he was trying for all the world not to find a way to tackle the guy, but to kind of hem him in along the sideline and then maybe shove him out of bounds. And finally the posse came and they did get the guy down, but it should have been down probably 10 yards before that. Again, they made up for it with creating the turnovers, getting the 4th down stop. All the kudos in the world to those guys for that. But that first half looked like they had reverted badly. And I think to your point, I did think they were pretty stout physically between the tackles, or between the ends up front, especially the front line. But how many sacks of a rookie quarterback today?
Well, yes. Well, okay. So I tweeted this out before halftime, and this was the most concerning part to me of the Bengals defense today, at least in the first half. And that was that Quinn Ewers was 10 of 12 for 109 yards, no sacks, no quarterback pressures. And I'm thinking, this is a quarterback who was last year playing at Texas, who was facing no pressure, who was not being threatened to be brought to the ground or being intercepted down the field. And I'm like, why is this defense incapable of making Quinn Ewers even feel uncomfortable, let alone picking him off or getting to him for a sack?
Yeah, because it's just proven to be not good enough. I mean, they've got so many things they've got to fix this offseason. That's why don't let today fool you if you're the Bengals. I mean, you still got a lot of things to fix. I know they didn't have Joseph Osai, but your hotshot rookie first-round pick got some snaps today. He got all of 2 tackles. I remember one, and one was a good one actually. But
it was A-Chain.
Yes.
He fought off a block and he came to his right, A-Chain's left, and stopped him where it was in on the tackle for a 3-yard gain. But that's the only time I remember seeing Shamar Stewart on the field today.
I know it was his first game back. I'll give you all of that, but it's not like, again, this guy in 5 previous games this year and 177 defensive snaps has all 6 tackles and 1 quarterback hit. I mean, at some point, there's got to be some level of production. There just has to be. I do think you're seeing more of Myles Murphy. I think that's a good thing. He seems to show up. It was, like I said, it was a great hustle play when he went and recovered that fumble. And I'll be honest with you, who's I think has been a sneaky nice player. I don't know what the long-term projection for him would be because he's really been a backup or a practice squad guy. Jalen Davis has played pretty well since he's come out. I mean, had a couple of great plays. The interception on a one-on-one with Jalen Waddle was great. He tackled A-Chain for a 4-yard loss on a 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 play. He seems to show up a lot. I'll say that much.
Well, and I'll give him his due. DJ Turner played a little bit in the first half and then didn't play in the second half. And Josh Newton came in and timed his hit on, I forget who it was.
I think it was our guy Weiss again.
It was Weiss that forced the interception by Barrett Carter. And I thought that was a terrific play by Josh Newton. He timed it well. He did what, unfortunately, Dejon Anthony could not do last year in game week 2 against Kansas City. But he timed it perfectly. So you like to see a young player like that in his second season be able to come in, make a play. Obviously, the Bengals are only playing for their records and stats right now. But to see him come in was very good. We spent a good deal of the last portion of this podcast talking about the defense. And you mentioned some of the bright spots that we've seen on defense. I want to talk more about Jalen Davis because he's not Mike Hilton, but they needed somebody this year to come up and maybe play that role a little bit. And I'm frankly surprised, given the poor performance of this defense at times, that we didn't see Jalen Davis a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I think part of it is he doesn't have a big body, so maybe you fear like he's going to be a kid who's going to wear down through the physicality of it. When Cam Taylor-Britt was healthy, he was having his struggles, but you were trying to play Dax Hill in the slot as a slot corner and Cam on the outside with DJ Turner on the outside, and felt like you were good enough there. But I'm kind of with you. I mean, the guy just shows up and plays, man, and I'm impressed with guys like that. Like, he came right off the practice squad into the starting lineup. That doesn't happen very often.
No.
Now, it was by default because of injuries and whatnot, but he came up and played, and he's actually played pretty well since then, and good for him for taking advantage of the opportunity.
The other thing, Skinny, he's very valuable to, and Darren Simmons on special teams likes him a lot, but Darren Simmons, I guess, is pretty full up on those type of gunners and probably doesn't need him right now. And
especially with him starting. Yeah, and especially with him starting.
Right. And so it's a numbers game. So that's kind of the issue there on special teams. But, you look for bright spots. I think Jalen Davis is a guy that they like and would like to bring back if the numbers work out next year in terms of the roster spots and what they do on defense. Again, we are going to spend a great deal of the end of this season and the offseason talking about how this defensive roster in particular needs to be rebuilt. Do you rebuild it along the defensive line, which a lot of people want to do? Do you bring in 2 veteran linebackers to help with Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight, who, by the way, today got kind of spun around on one of Miami's touchdowns and just kind of whiffed and was out of position. But where do you start if you're the Bengals and you want to call yourself Duke Tobin or you want to call yourself Steve Radidovich, wherever? Where do you want to start?
I have to start on the interior of the defensive line and probably add another pass rusher as well. I mean, TJ Slayton at best is a rotational player. BJ Hill just doesn't have a lot of juice anymore. They have no pass rush juice in there from the defensive tackles.
But he's got 2 years remaining on a $33 million deal.
Insane to me. You saw some McKinley Jackson today. I didn't really notice him other than I just saw his number out there. Chris Jenkins got hurt, but even before Chris Jenkins got hurt, he hasn't done much this year, and that's year 2 in the books for him. You've gotten a little bit out of Myles Murphy, and hopefully that's at least a piece you can count on. I just don't know if it's a difference maker piece. I mean, they don't have a single difference maker in that front 7 group whatsoever. The only difference maker really is DJ Turner at cornerback. So I do think, I know nobody's going to want to hear this. If it was me, I think I would bring in another veteran linebacker, although you brought in Oren Burks, and he's just not good enough to start ahead of the 2 rookies. I think what it's going to come down to is you better hope the 2 rookies play well over the last couple of games. Demetrius Knight had some moments last week against Baltimore. Barrett Carter had a couple of moments today. You need way more consistency from them. But I think they roll into next year with those two guys because you can't fix everything. You need at least one, if not two safeties. You need depth at safety, not just somebody to replace Geno Stone. You need a starter, but you also need depth because they don't trust Tyson Anderson or P.J. Jules or Dejon Anthony or any of those guys to get meaningful snaps at safety. So you got to bring that in. You're probably at least needing at least another corner. I mean, you got a lot of things to fix on that defense in this offseason. I think the good part is, though, that's where you have to go with it, right? Like, would it be nice if you got back into free agency and got a guard maybe, or do you just, try to re-sign Dalton Risner for a year or Lucas Patrick and keep him around as depth pieces with Rivers and Fairchild? I mean, you really don't need to address a whole lot of things on offense. I think that's the one good thing. When everybody's healthy, you're fine personnel-wise. You're not great across the board on the offensive line, but you're fine personnel-wise. I think all the focus of attention, money, draft picks, attention, all of it has to go to fixing that defense.
Well, and you saw today, if the defense creates the turnovers, you can certainly put the offense in good position, and they have the weapons to go down.
Absolutely.
Yes, the Dolphins' defense was beat up and not very good, so maybe you don't want to judge too much off what happened in the second half today. But you do know that with Burrow in charge, they can march down the field and they can score points. They can put points on the scoreboard. Skinny, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's the one takeaway from today is big takeaways, is Burrow kind of made you finally go, okay, whatever's going on, it's in the past. It was a 1 week outlier. We still got a top-tier quarterback in this league, and he showed it today. Yeah, Miami's defense isn't very good. It's missing its best player, Mika Fitzpatrick. To your point, you were set up in great field position, but he looked in total command, total charge. The numbers back that up, and he'll make us look back on that game probably and go, don't know what happened that week. Never going to find out what happened that week. Something happened that week. Something was amiss, but this guy's still a top-tier quarterback.
I just want to address this really quickly. During the broadcast, it was almost as if they were discrediting what Burrow was saying. And it made me furious because they're not around the team during the week. They're not around the team during the season. And what Burrow was saying was not insignificant. It was more than just, it's a toss-away line. It was frustrated that we lost. But, how are players supposed to answer these questions that they get every week? No. What Burrow said was very intentional, and there was a message to be delivered to the organization. Whether or not Katie Blackburn, Troy Blackburn, Mike Brown, Duke Tobin, whether they hear and act upon that message is another matter altogether. What Joe Burrow said and the way he was behaving was very intentional. That's the way I read it.
I absolutely agree. I was listening to that to myself going, you guys weren't around it. You're getting their mouthpiece on it of,
correct.
Hey, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, it was. It was significant. To your point, Mike, it was significant. And the way the week played out made it even more significant. The way he talked after that game. It is significant, but it's also significant that it's now in the past and he played like the Joe Burrow of old today.
Indeed. Any takeaways from Mike McDaniel? If we think that Zach Taylor's under fire, to have the owner, Stephen Ross, in the owner's suite back in town for whatever reason it was, watching what was going on and to hear the fans boo. I mean, we heard it last week in that 24-0 shutout to the Ravens. We heard the Bengal fans. What were your takeaways of the Mike McDaniel-led Dolphins today?
Yeah, I think they need both a GM and a head coach, and I think that's what's going to happen. You're going to get your GM and let your GM go get his head coach and go from there. I just don't see how Mike McDaniel survives this. I think he's a brilliant offensive mind. He's proven that. But it's they've got a bunch of contract issues. In fact, if I was Mike McDaniel, I'd almost say, please fire me because I'll go on to the next job. Because right now that is a dumpster fire of a job, to be quite frank. Yeah,
and they're going to probably have to make up their mind how much they're going to eat on Tua's contract because he is not going to be the quarterback next year. So the Bengals take care of business today, 45-21 over the Miami Dolphins. The Bengals snap a mini two-game losing streak and improved to 5-10 on the season. The Arizona Cardinals had a big injury today on defense, and they are coming to town next week. for the penultimate game at Paycor Stadium, then the season finale at Paycor on January 4th, 1 p.m. against the Cleveland Browns. Bengals certainly have an opportunity to finish this season with 3 consecutive wins and finish the season 7-10. And Zach Taylor told us this week during his press conferences and in meeting with the reporters on Friday, we're going to try to finish with the best record we can, and that means going 7-10. And certainly after watching what the Bengals did today, they are certainly in position to do that.